Hello and welcome to The Stack. This week we speak with the editor-in-chief of The National, a leading newspaper in the United Arab Emirates, plus a fashion title that digs deep into the fashion industry and a streetwear brand making beautiful print. Enjoy the show. From Midori House in London, this is The Stack, 30 minutes of print industry analysis, and I am Fernando Augusto Pacheco. The National is the United Arab Emirates' leading English-language daily newspaper, headquartered in Abu Dhabi and known for its coverage of both regional and global affairs. In 2017, the paper underwent a major relaunch under the leadership of its new editor-in-chief, Mina Al-Oraibi, who moved to the UAE for the job and has held the position ever since. Mina recently sat down with Monocle's Hassan Anderson at Midori House. He began by asking her about her first impressions of the UAE when taking over as editor-in-chief at The National.
More than anything, it surprised me how neutral they were to the fact that I was a woman. I thought it would be much more difficult as a woman to be taken seriously. And I was surprised how gender blind the officials I dealt with were, the people that I was interacting with. It was incredible. It was so refreshing. And I was also, I think, surprised by the fact that there was such rigor at The National, even though it hadn't really at that time embraced what it meant to be digital first and kind of the change that newspapers and publications were going through globally, and what I had seen in London, Washington, other places, hadn't really fully been embraced there. And so the really difficult part was changing the newsroom.
Let's talk about running a newsroom in the Middle East, because I know that over the past 20 months, journalism's sort of become a battlefront in which reporters or newspapers are accused of being biased or propagandist or mouthpieces of certain factions or governments. And I know The National has been in the firing line of that as well. So for you, how has the concept of journalism and trustworthy journalism more specifically changed in response to all of that?
There are so many ways to answer your question. First of all, in light of what happened in the last 20 months and seeing really harsh biases against the Palestinians and really this narrative of, oh, there are no journalists in Gaza, so we can't really know what's happening there, where in reality it's there are no international journalists. There are Palestinian journalists that are doing an incredible job in keeping this story alive. And we've worked with Palestinian journalists before October 7th, terrible attacks that happened in Israel, and, and continued, of course, afterwards. So for me, this idea that if you are of that country, be it Iraq during the Iraq War or Palestinian now with Gaza under attack and the West Bank under attack, you are a lesser journalist is ridiculous, and it's racist. And to see that being espoused by, again, journalists or organizations that we really looked up to in the West has been quite harsh. It's been really hard to accept that people would say this and not even blink, not even flinch. And to see the biases in the writing, the lack of humanity from some outlets, and while other outlets have really risen up to the challenge, and that's been great. And I'm really proud at The National of how we've tried to tell the stories of Palestinians and Israelis. I mean, we also have the other side of, because we write about the hostages in Israel, we get attacked of saying you should feel ashamed. Why would you put a spotlight on Israeli suffering when clearly the Palestinian, just by magnitude, is much greater in terms of the amount of people that are suffering. And I always say, it's not a zero-sum game. We have to tell the entire story. So that's one thing to handle. The other one, your point about mouthpiece. If we weren't doing serious journalism and verifiable journalism, I'm very proud of the fact that, two of our team here in London have lobby passes and cover profoundly what happens in the UK, but also its impact globally. And, our colleagues in Washington are part of the foreign press pool of the White House. And that tells you something, that this is a very serious journalistic outlet and that we can do it in the UAE. And we're not the only ones in the UAE.
Well, on the UAE, the country's expanding its presence internationally at the moment. It's become one of the world's great tech hubs. How has The National responded to being located at the heart of that dramatic change in Abu Dhabi? And what's your view of this global push we're seeing the country take at the moment?
The UAE is a real believer in globalization in the traditional understanding of the term of, the world is open, borders are open, people are flowing through, ideas are flowing through, and the UAE wants to be a part of that. And then you add the layer of AI and technology, which has been fascinating. So in 2018, we announced the hiring of a future editor at the National. It confused a lot of people because they thought this was going to be the next editor-in-chief. Not. It was the future editor to kind of understand the trends of where is the future going. So if you look at transportation, they have everything from, the Dubai Metro to thinking about flying taxis. They, flirted with the idea of a hyperloop. We're not sure if that's going to go through. But, you had the future of transportation was being taken there. I interviewed the CEO of Uber because Uber has their driverless cars, being...
meant to be coming to London in spring, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But they were testing things out in the UAE, 2-3 years ago, right? So as a meeting point of people who are thinking about the future, the National came up with the idea to appoint a future editor. And we were telling the story of where the future is going to take us. And we were a better place to do that coming from the UAE than perhaps some of the other traditional capitals that you would have. Because there's innovation and, it's a smaller country, it's a younger country, so it actually can leapfrog and think about things with dynamics. And, a lot of people say, oh, but it's because they're rich. And I'm like, actually, as an economy, the UK is a bigger economy. And if you think about being rich, Iraq is rich, but look at the state of that country. So it's not that. It is leadership, it's thinking, and it's being bold. And so that becomes part of it. And so the National, I think, is lucky because we can cover all the stuff, intimately know it, and have experts from around the world coming there. So there's the MBZ University for AI. So we have experts on AI sitting there that we would have direct access to because it's a small place and we're a big player. So it's a huge advantage for us.
But being that close to the forefront of AI, there's a flip side to it in the sense that many people perceive the technology to be one of the greatest threats to the future of journalism. So what's your view on how much of a threat it poses?
I don't see it as a threat. I see it as a real challenge. And I see it as a challenge because I think if we don't get it right, it could confuse a lot of things in terms of, one, people will think, oh, it can replace humans. So until we go through that muddle and convince people that you still actually just need human in the loop, as these technology people would say. Second, I'm really, really concerned. And where I do see a threat is how people are informed about deep fakes, because they have gotten now to a point where you could get people to believe that Zelensky and Trump's argument in the White House descended into a fist fight because there was that video that went around and confused people. Now, for a lot of people who watched the live press conference, laughed at it. But actually, if you hadn't watched the press conference, you did have to go back and check, and did this happen or not? So that is the threat, not to journalism, because I think actually journalism will survive and thrive in showing that you do need journalists to verify and to tell you original stories. But I see it as a threat of how people are informed, how society is able to frame a public discourse. And I think it's a real threat in sparking conflict and polarization.
Well, despite being situated in one of the world's tech capitals, the National still produces a print version of its newspaper as well as a digital one. So I'm curious as to what advantages you see physical print having over the digital world and if that will continue in the future.
I personally love physical print, and I think most print journalists do. But I'm also increasingly aware that very few people will pick up a newspaper to be informed by it. But then people will pick it up as almost a luxury now, to be able to have that time and not to be distracted and to read. And so not only are we committed to having a print publication, that's only in the UAE, so our reach outside the UAE is only digital, but for inside the UAE and for people who come to visit the country at major conferences, I always find it heartening when I'm at a major conference and I see somebody's got the National, turned or folded and put under their armpit, and I know they're going to take it with them, or it's hanging out of their bag and they want to read it when they have a quiet moment. And I think a good show of our confidence in print is that we have a monthly magazine called Luxury, which we are about to relaunch in September. We haven't really spoken to this about anybody except Monocle.
Exclusive for the stack.
Exclusive for the stack. And so we're relaunching it, understanding that people's interests are also changing. So Luxury will mature to the next phase. And so the fact that we're investing in a physical product because actually not only are there readers for it, but there are clients asking for it, then for us that shows confidence in it. And there is an iteration of print that is still quite viable. And as I said, I think with time we will actually not only retain, but garner new loyal readers of a print product that want something that is stable, trustworthy, and that they can spend time on in a luxury of getting away from screen time.
That was the National's editor-in-chief, Mina Al-Oraibi, in conversation with Monocle's Hassan Anderson. And now let's talk about Patta, the company created by Guillaume, Schmidt and Edson Sabajo in the Netherlands. They first opened a store in Amsterdam in 2004, and now their exciting streetwear includes shops not only in Amsterdam, but also in London, Milan and Lagos. Patta also produces a fantastic magazine, edited by David Kane. In their most recent issue, the focus goes to artists and children of the diaspora who grew up in the Benelux region, like Balogi, who started with a hip-hop group and is now a filmmaker. It was a pleasure to speak with both David and Patta's co-founder, Guillaume Schmidt.
Everything right now there's a lot of scrolling, there's a lot of single-driven instead of album-driven, like there's a lot of, like, time is a different concept in this day and age, you know what I mean? And the company that we are, on all the things that we do, that we probably be talking about later on with running teams and then the sound system, and then aside from that, like things like Patta Academy, and then just the voice that we have as a company and as a brand, and the things that we want to do and want to put into the world, it has to do with so much more than only a product. That I think for us, having a magazine just slows everything down a little bit, like people can have it and they can have it for a while. You don't have to look it up on the internet. You can take your magazine and we can go a little bit more in depth in whatever interests us, So I think that's the main reasoning.
Well, and David, I have to say this, the Patta magazine, it becomes a little bit of an object of desire as well, of people not only wanting to have the latest sneakers or the latest clothing from Patta, but also a copy. So tell us about your story with Patta. Since when have you been, I know you're the editor-in-chief of the magazine, but since when have you been working there?
First up, thank you for the observation about being an object of desire. That's something we're really striving for. How did I meet G and Patta? Dare I say, like a lot of things in the Patta world, it came about quite organically. Back in tail end of 2020, I interviewed G and Edson, the founders of Patta, for Esquire in the UK. They were very giving with their time. We sort of geeked out over music and magazines and obviously trainers, right? And it was a somewhat flippant comment, but I said, you guys should start a magazine, because I used to run a music magazine a long time ago back in London. Edson said, you should start it for us. And life kind of got in the way. This was, just running into peak COVID. I think certainly at that point, Patta was, bricks and mortar was a big part of the business. So we sort of agreed to kind of just maybe stay in touch. And a year or so passed and I got back in touch with G. And long story short, we started the magazine. And yeah, it's been an amazing journey. Patta is a brand that's able to tell stories like few others. And to G's point, I think, magazine reading does help slow things down and put people in a different mindset when it comes to consuming content or stories. So yeah, the genesis of Patta magazine was really quite organic, to say the least.
Well, the best thing starts in an organic way, I have to say. And Guillaume, I have to say as well that reading the magazine, it doesn't feel at all as a commercial title. Of course, the brand is there, is the name of the magazine, but I think that was never the intention, right?
No, as I say, actually for us, Patta as a brand, obviously is like a lot of what we do and who we are also is informed by us standing out also in the fact that I think only by existence we already are a form of resistance, because like not many a brand that does what we do has founders that look like me and Edson to start with, you know what I mean? So we always see reasoning and the why of why we do specific things as being very specific. So therefore, like, obviously, we have means of promoting our product. We have a website, we have physical stores, we have Instagrams and all these tools to actually show what we have. And because end of the day, we need to have sales for us to exist. You know what I mean? But as starting point for me and Edson, when we even started the company, like the selling of the product and starting the store and doing all the things we had also, in essence, was also, you could almost look at it like a means to an end. It has always been super important for us to work with people around us, to travel, to make sure that music is involved. Sport is super important to us. Like all these things that now make up the pillars of what Patta is as a brand, like are informed by that. So the magazine for us is an opportunity, very, very, very big opportunity to in actuality visualize and articulate that world that people might not have that all the time for on the digital side of the universe. So no, obviously, yes, you will see Patta product in there. Yes, it is also a tool to get people in touch with us, but it's more specifically definitely a tool to also show what we think is interesting.
Well, and I discovered so many things, David, reading, for example, in issue 3, is not even the current issue, but a great piece on Black women in metal music. Again, I have no idea about the topic. When I saw it, it really caught my eye. And I think that's what the magazine is about as well, right? Stories like this.
Completely. And I think because Patta, has these 4 key pillars of sports, community, brand, and music, it provides a lot of fertile ground when it comes to editorial. And it's funny the point we make, you asked about brand. If anything, up until this point, I've been the one saying to Guillaume and the team, why aren't we doing more to show the brand? And usually I'm coming from much more of an editorial place. I think that we sort of shifted a little bit with the forthcoming issue, but that's definitely, for me, our strongest yet. But yeah, back to your question, Fernando, the Black Women in Metal, that was a cold pitch that came in through, I believe she's a Nigerian writer based in the UK. And it's a really nice piece that a few people have actually pulled up to me. So it's really satisfying to see and hear that. I think Patta's in a position to tell stories that others can't because of that authenticity that G mentioned earlier. And I'm really just a tool to help tell those stories. That's how I see it.
And it's funny, the magazine, so Guillaume, the magazine is super international, but so is Patta. I mean, you're not only talking the talk, you are present here in London, you're in Amsterdam, in Milan, in Lagos as well, which I think is super interesting.
Yeah, no, definitely Patta to the world, yes. And we have brick and mortars where we know people, where we actually can tap in and do stuff with people that are around. We always say Patta has a place somewhere when we know people, when we can do a nice party and good people show up, we can attract young creatives to be a part of the ecosystem and the things that we are doing. When there's fertile ground for that, we think hey, you know what? This might be an interesting place to have a store. So it actually comes from real relationships, So me and Edson have been going to London for years and years and years. And actually also when me and David, for instance, talk about London and he talks about his upbringings and his connections and stuff like that, there's so much similarities and touch points of people that we know throughout the years and throughout the things that we do. And in actuality, that is something that makes doing something in London interesting for us. And the same goes for Milan and the same goes for Lagos. We've been going to Lagos for the last 6 years. And we started really building and having relationships there and seeing what the potential is there. That backed with the story that we have as me and Edson being children of the diaspora, going to Nigeria was a full circle moment, for sure.
Well, in Nigeria, the cultural scene there is so exciting as well. Even when I pick music for the Monocle playlist, the music is fantastic.
The music goes first, you know what I mean? If the music kind of informs where the continent is at the moment in the world. I was actually discussing it when I was in Paris, you know what I mean? And we were talking about hey, what's going on in the music world right now and everything like that. And it's actually Black music is the most dominant pop music right now, you know what I mean? And that's not even only from the United States of America, you know, like African music scene is so big and so influential and so rich. And yeah, the talent and the way things grow over there, it's unparalleled. Like when we went over there was a streetwear scene. We linked up with Jomi from Waffles and Cream. They had like a burgeoning skate scene there. A lot of interesting stuff was happening there. But as we came back every year, like it just really exploded. And the talent is just like, it's immaculate. You send some stuff over there and you get like the most amazing imagery back. We try to touch on it, like in a couple of magazines, you see some articles coming back. Like we try to do that more and more. So like people can actually see what's actually happening over there. Because I think still, put the music aside for a minute, like people still really have a misconception about the continent, you know?
Well, and talking about some highlights of the magazines, David, Volume 4 is the more recent one, right? So it's out now. I wonder if you can talk us a little bit, some of the highlights. It's impossible to talk about everything, but I wonder if you could give us a nice preview if someone wants to go and grab
Sure.
a copy.
Technically, I think it is out now, Fernando, but I think it long cleared off the Patta store shelves. So
We need
good
issue
luck to
5.
anyone
We need
get
Volume
copy.
5.
It's coming. It's coming. And G may have given a hint of some of the artists we're going to be featuring, certainly one on the cover. Anyhow, highlights from Volume 4. I think for me, that was probably our most conceptual issue yet. We featured 2 artists on the cover, in fact 3, including the artist in residence, in Russia. I think my highlight of the magazine would have to be, well, I really like what we did with Imru, who's the fashion director, I believe, or styling director at Dazed. I really liked his sort of process imagery that we saw in his feature. So it's kind of get the behind the scenes of how that works. I am sort of refreshing my memory of that issue.
Touching base.
Touching base was great. Dare I say an extract from my book, which was focused on Tricky, which was the 30th anniversary of his incredible debut album, Maxim Quaid. But yeah, I think it was just another example of how varied and wide-ranging the Patta universe can be. As I say, I think Volume 4 was great, but Volume 5, we're leveling up.
When is it out? Do you have any idea?
August,
perfect. So it's still in the summer heat. So I look forward to read that one. And Guillaume, I just want to go back to the brand as well. You know, I was looking, there's so many exciting projects and collaborations with brands. Tell us a bit more perhaps about the Nike one, which is the more recent one as well, right? I know the Air Max are sold out already.
Yeah, the product, you know, the product does what it does, you know, but I think what is really strong in what we do is always the narrative that comes with the product, you know, like there's more than the transaction of having some nice shoes, but we also see it as opportunities to bring people to the world, to create other desirable stuff. So this was really a music orientated Nike project, you know, so we basically created original music for this campaign with super talented artists. Benny X from the US, really multi-talented artist who really has his own sound. We worked with Odumodu Black, who is a huge artist from Nigeria, and with an upcoming artist from the UK, Bex, also super talented, crazy good MC. We created original music with them. We went into the studio. We made a couple of tracks. We picked 2 and we pressed that on vinyl. So when you buy the shoes, you also buy vinyl. So that's the package. And then aside from that, we also brought it into the world working with a super talented Congolese Belgian director called Balogi, who really made a beautiful movie called Agure. He actually was in Volume 4. So if you want to know more about him, there's more in that specific magazine. And he made the video for it, you know, which has all types of symbolism in it and is very playful and like hyper abstract. I'm super proud of that work, you know. So it's been a major team effort, you know, like a lot of people from the company that are also like working on the magazine also put their 2 cents into it. Victor, Then you have Vincent also doing a lot of the creative direction together with Balogi. So a lot of people work really, really, really hard to get this specific project from the ground.
Thank you, Guillaume and David. Their spring-summer issue is out now, and there will be a new issue by the end of August. And now we are in Paris, where I had the pleasure to interview the editor-in-chief of Griffé, Salomé Dudemaine. Griffé is a wonderful magazine for those that truly appreciate fashion as a craft. Co-founded by Salomé and Julian Sanders, the title really digs deep into one specific brand and issue. For the latest, the attention goes to Kenzo. It was a pleasure to speak with Salomé from our Paris studio.
Griffé is a monothematic magazine. It's part of a collection that is issued once a year. And the concept is that each issue is dedicated to one fashion brand. So we've already issued 3 magazines so far. So the first one was on Maison Margiela, the second one on Mugler, and the last one on Kenzo. And next one coming next year is about Rabanne.
Fantastic.
There you go. You have
I was going to
exclusive information.
Ooh, I love that. And the first one, is it true that you had to do a reprint, right? Because it was so successful.
Yes, indeed. So the first one was out of stock since like a year and a half. I think there's something about Margiela, who's got like such a great community, who's really involved into anything, saying anything about Margiela. So people were really eager for many years for us to reprint. So we heard the people and did one the other day and did a special event to impersonate that, because for us, issuing a magazine without doing an event and without presenting it properly to the audience doesn't make any sense.
Especially these days, that's a trend I'm seeing on the stack. You know, I think the readers, they want to feel connected. They want to, you know, have a chat with you with a glass of wine in hand, right? Yes.
Actually, we impersonate a lot Griffé, Julien and I. So yes, we are 2. I'm not the only one. There is as well my business partner, whose name is Julien Sanders, who's from Belgium. We started impersonate this project because we wanted to truly explain to the people that it started because we felt like something was missing in the field of fashion history and also global fashion communication about the way they present themselves to the world, saying and presenting only the facade of the couturier or the designer who's like some sort of magician doing everything by himself like a genius. There are geniuses indeed, but there are so many people behind them taking their ideas to the end. And what we see is the result of a long chain of expertise. And we wanted to, because, I don't know, today people want to know how things are done, what they eat, where it was made, where it comes from. It's the same with fashion. And what's the human side of fashion beside product? And for us, it's all the people working together as a team, like fashion being a team effort that is important. So that's how actually we started this project, because we started researching the people working for Margiela in the shadow and doing interviews. And that's how we were like, okay, they tell stories that we've never heard about that are so fascinating. Those people are so inspiring. And we were like, we need to find like the proper media to share that with the other people like us that are really eager to understand how does fashion work.
I have a question. You know, how much access do the brand give it to you? So were there like long conversations with Dan and explaining what you do? Because sometimes the brand's like, oh my God, there's a lot of information about us. So I wonder, what's the relationship there?
Obviously, it has evolved since the first issue. It's always difficult when you come with nothing in hands to show. So with Margiela, it was a little different than it was with Kenzo. Obviously, you have to gain their trust and they have to understand what's your angle. So actually, it's never been that hard. I think that Griffé allows a space for conversation that they cannot take themselves, but they are really happy that someone else is do. Like, for instance, they don't really have the space to tell their own stories because they have to be focused on the selling of the next collection. They don't have the space to talk about former designers or artistic directors or other people before, because they are so much focused on actual artistic directors, which is completely normal. So they are quite happy that we can actually take that voice, put up that voice for them. And actually, for Mugler, for instance, which was our second issue, the only thing they changed was like a tiny bit of information that we actually found online. So anyone can access that information, but I don't know why this one they did not like, but that's the only thing they changed. Otherwise, they didn't change anything. Kenzo didn't change anything, but the red did all over, even like the law department. But they are, I think, happy with the portrait of the brand we tell.
And one thing I like about Griffé, you're right. I mean, from magazines, what I was missing is a little bit more about history, about brands that we all love, and they all matter because people are interested more and more about the behind the scenes in the fashion world. And it's not an easy magazine to make, I presume, right? It's big, there are a lot of pages, it's archival. So tell us, it takes a while. That's why there's one issue a year, right?
That's also because we want to keep some time to do also other kind of stuff with all the archiving material we find with Griffé, to work on with the brands, to maybe do like some trainings with all the information we've gathered, to do, I don't know, like videos or talks, conferences, because the idea is that we collect, as you said, so much information. We do for 4 or 5 months. We trace all the people we can find that are still living, that used to work for the brand. It can go from the first woman doing accountability at Kenzo in the 1970s to the guy who did the graphic design of the logo in the 1980s to the president of the perfume side of the company. And they all explain their point of view on the development of the brand. And that's how we managed to tell that full story from inside. Because the idea is that usually the fashion books are more about the clothes and the evolution of the silhouettes and like all the artistic inspiration. So most of the time it's more like fashion is some sort of art, and we say fashion is an industry and you have people working for it, and that's not the portrait of the woman or man who started the brand as a designer, but it's the portrait of the brand itself.
I love that. With Mugler, for example, we all know this, his amazing vision, the incredible fashion shows. But I mean, how to make those incredible clothes, the materials as well, for example.
Yes, definitely. And that's actually one of the main topics in Griffé is where the clothes are produced. Because with Margiela, that's actually how we started the whole project, is when we discovered those women owning factories in Italy that they actually created themselves in like the 1950s, 1970s, like as women in Italy in the 1950s, 1970s. I mean, that's huge. And they were so crucial in the result we see on the runway, because a designer comes to them with like a drawing, an idea that is 2-dimensional and also still like something very not really materialized yet. And that's them with their technique and their expertise of a fabric or a thread or a technique, and they bring that to life. And if the designer would have went to another factory, the result would have been good as well, but different. So that shows a lot of how important they are in the process. And that's when we discovered those women in Italy that we were like, this is the side of the fashion that we never say that is important to bring to the stage.
Absolutely. And tell us, if people are interested to find out a bit more about Griffé and buy a copy as well, can they buy on a website? Do you have some selective places where people can go and actually purchase? Because I have a feeling there's a lot of interest to that. And be careful, because they do get sold out.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, so do not waste too much time.
Yes.
So yeah, most of our sellings are online, but we also have a network of bookshops that we love and work directly with, most of them here in Paris, but Monocle in Paris, but I guess also Monocle in Switzerland and maybe elsewhere, but lots of bookshop and also on our website on studiogriffé.fr.
It's fantastic. I cannot wait for the new issue for Rabanne, but that's early next year, right?
It's supposed to be around April.
Oh, for now we have Kenzo.
Yes, you already have a lot of reading to do.
A lot of reading material. And just finally, before you leave, Salome, just because we are in Paris right now, and, Men's Fashion Week is currently going on. But what a fantastic city in terms of fashion history as well. So many exhibitions about fashion. More and more, I would say. Would you say that? So I think that kind of, in a way, connects with Griffé and this idea of that people being interested in knowing a little bit more. It's not just like this is a nice look.
Yes.
It's more than that.
That's definitely, it's also seeing all those amazing exhibitions, because that's so great that here in Paris we have so many houses that have an archive department, because we are a city where you can every month see like a different fashion exhibition and see the clothing that you wouldn't normally see if you are not like a part of that tiny elite fashion world. So those exhibitions are really important, and we are just maybe something that comes in addition to that, because most of the exhibition tend to focus on the clothing, which is great. I'm happy they do. But all the more documents, photographs, and ephemeras, which are getting a huge thing in the field of fashion right now, what they don't really know what space they can get, what to do of them. And that's actually what we wanted to show in the way we worked on the graphic design of the magazine, because it's a lot of documents, the materiality of the documents, and all this when you put one document beside another. So it's a lot of collage inside. What story does it tell without any word? And that's what I think we've managed to do with Griffé.
Thank you very much, Salome. The latest issue of Griffé is out now. For more information, go to studiogriffé.fr. And that's it for this week's show. My thanks to our editor, Jack Dewars. Any comments or queries, feel free to write to me, Fernando, at fp@monocle.com. And remember, we're back next Saturday at 10 a.m. London time. Meanwhile, you can always listen again at monocle.com and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You've been listening to The Stack. I'm Fernando Augusto Pacheco. Until next time, it's goodbye from me.